This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put the South at the center. In this week's episode, we examine Anant Ambani's Vantara project and how, under the guise of animal rescue, it may be hiding something sinister. Then we turn to Kerala and ask if the Congress action against MLA Rahul Mamkootathil was too late and too less. I am Dhanya Rajendran, your host, and joining me in the studio is my co-host Pooja Prasanna, the reporting head of the News Minute.
Hi Dhanya, from 3 we've come down to 2 now. Leena's missing from this week.
Yes, Leena Raghunath is no longer hosting South Central. We did do a send-off for her in the last episode, so if you didn't watch that episode or listen to that episode, then do go back. Now, to the good news first, the likes are steadily climbing on Spotify. Every week, I tell you all, whether you're listening on YouTube, wherever, go back to Spotify and like us there. In the comment section last week, someone said that there is no such like button on Spotify. Yes, it is there. But you have to go to the show, not the episode. Like I said, my immediate competition is News Laundry's Hafta. They are not aware of this competition because they have not announced a different competition, a parallel competition. So go ahead and do that. And I also want to make a pitch for our subscription today. I do want you to think very carefully that do you have rupees 500 to spare for the News Minute and News Laundry every month? Money that will help us sustain, to grow, to do ground reporting, to do more stories. I think you need to think, would I like an Indian media space without the News Minute and News Laundry? If your answer is no, then pause right now. The description has all the links. You can go to our website. The link is there. Become a subscriber. Not only will you be helping us survive, sustain and grow, but you also get access to all our paywalled content. And last week we published this really important story by Nidhi Suresh, which is the first time that the nun in the Bishop Franco rape case has ever spoken out. We have got mails, we have got messages, people writing into us. But I think the biggest moment of pride was when a journalist who worked with the Boston Globe's Spotlight. Now, many of you may have read Spotlight or at least watched the movie. Spotlight was the first journalistic exercise which sort of exposed the sexual abuse inside the Vatican, inside the church. So they actually shared our story saying that do read this story from India. So don't be that Indian who hasn't read the story. So go to the News Minute website and read Nidhi Suresh's story. Now, on to the headlines.
Case against actor Vijay bounces after alleged assault during TVK Madurai rally. According to multiple reports, the complainant, Sarath Kumar, alleged that he was manhandled and pushed off a 7-foot-high ramp. This is a little alarming.
No, also, I think Vijay can now, if it did happen, he can just say, I apologize.
Yeah. But I think, the kind of craze there is an actor, a very popular actor and now a politician. So there will be more people trying to kind of mob him. They'll have to find a way around it.
But he can say sorry if somebody has pushed a person on a 7-foot ramp, that too.
Yeah. Kerala school teacher suspended after telling Muslim students not to join Onam Fest.
Yeah, so this teacher called Khadija, she teaches at the Sirajul Aloom English School in Thrissur. She told students not to go for the Onam festival. It has become a huge controversy because it is a harvest festival. And there's always this talk about, is it religious? Is it just a harvest festival? And this teacher saying that in that school group has triggered this controversy.
Kerala High Court suspends family court judge after multiple women alleged sexual misconduct.
Yeah, so it's been a week of sexual misconduct reporting in Kerala. There's, of course, Congress leader Rahul Mamkootathil, which we'll discuss in this week's episode. Then there's rapper Vaden, who has been accused, who has 2 police cases against him, and he's got anticipatory bail in both of them. Then this family court judge, his name is Uday Kumar. So the women have not gone to the police, but it seems that they filed a complaint to the district judge. The district judge then gave a report to the Kerala High Court. 3 women saying that this family court judge sexually harassed them. And remember, this is not the first time this is happening in Kerala. A few months ago, another family court judge, that time a district judge actually from Kozhikode, was accused of misconduct. This time it is a judge from Kollam.
DK Shivkumar defends Chamundi Hills not exclusive to Hindus remark, says BJP is creating unnecessary row. This is in relation to Banu Mushtaq, the International Booker Prize winner, inaugurating this year's Mysuru Dasara. Now, we've put a very interesting story on this week's Power Trip. Do become a subscriber if you're not one already, so you can access Power Trip every week. We have spoken about why she was selected and what the Chief Minister is now thinking. But this seems like an unnecessary controversy. I know, Dhanya, you don't think so. But the background is that in 2017, another very well-known writer from Karnataka, Nisar Ahmed, also had inaugurated the Dasara. And my colleague Anisha has done a very important piece about questioning what Dasara means for Karnataka. We call it Nada Habba in the state, which means it's the state's festival. So does it belong to just Hindus? Is it a religious festival? Is it a secular one? These are questions Anisha has addressed.
And also there's a controversy regarding calling Kannada Bhuvaneshwari,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So do read that article. It explains both the controversies. One is, should a Muslim woman be invited to inaugurate Dasara? What do other authors in Karnataka think? And second is Banu Mushtaq's own comment that you are excluding a lot of people by calling Kannada as Bhuvaneshwari or a goddess.
Yeah. Moving on to Telangana, man kills pregnant wife, throws chopped body pieces into the Musi River. Very disturbing story coming from there.
But you will not see weeks and weeks of discussion on news channels on this.
I didn't see a single discussion on any national news channel on this.
And there have been so many crimes reported against women in the last few weeks, as usual.
Yeah. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Naidu moots financial district in Amravati. How many years have we been talking about such things, Dhanya? 10 years now.
I think now they have been acquiring more land and the construction is happening. There are also a lot of controversies happening with the CPIM and others objecting to some of the land acquisition. But looks like Naidu is on the path to somehow finish the work in Amravati.
For me, the larger question is, okay, infrastructure, land, all of that you'll do. Will you get jobs? There are some companies coming in, which is good news because youth from Andhra are still having to come to Hyderabad, Bangalore for jobs. So, moving on to one national headline, CBIC, that is the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, has urged against speculation on GST rates. Dhanya, who's actually speculating?
No, so first the advisory. The advisory said that people and media outlets should stop speculating on potential changes in GST rates. Now, it was surprising that this tweet was put out. The reason is perhaps that people are not shopping a lot, even though it is festival season, people buy cars, etc. And they're refraining from doing that because there are media reports that 28% GST rate will come down to 18%. The 18% slab will come down to 5%. But who started the speculation? It was the Indian Prime Minister himself when he was speaking during the Independence Day from Red Fort, where he said that the GST will go through an entire upheaval. Now, apparently the committee has not even met. But the Prime Minister made the speech. And if the Prime Minister makes a speech, obviously the media will sit and speculate as to what changes will come.
Now, moving on to a story we've covered very extensively for a few months. So here's an update. In the Dharmasthala case, the complainant has been slapped with more sections for lying about the skull. He's been arrested for perjury and giving false evidence. And as we had reported earlier, he had walked into a police station with a skull and he claimed that he had exhumed this and he had buried it many years ago. Now, it has turned out that this was given to him by someone else and it is not a skull that he had buried or he had exhumed. That person who's given it to him now will be questioned about why he did that and where the skull is from. But a lot of twists and turns. Dhanya, we have been putting out updates as and when they happen.
Yeah.
Also about Sujata Bhatt, right?
Yes. So I'm sure people are finding it confusing because there is one kind of reportage and then there's the other kind of reportage. So to just tell you the facts, one is what Pooja told you about the complainant. He was first arrested. Now, just yesterday, which is on the day of the Ganesha Chaturthi, he was slapped with 10 more sections, which is added to the first FIR. So the first FIR is basically based on his own complaint that he had buried bodies. That investigation is still on. But during the investigation, the police found that he had brought this fake skull. So the sections get slapped onto the same FIR. Will more people get added to the FIR? Will the police charge those people who supposedly gave him the skull? We don't know as of now, but the police are very much investigating it. That is for sure. The SIT is investigating it. The other thing is Sujata Bhatt. Now, Sujata Bhatt first appeared, I think, in YouTube channels around 2023. And then she resurfaced. I mean, she was interviewed by some Kannada YouTube channels in 2023. She resurfaced in 2025 after this complainant made it public, or his lawyers put out a statement that he is going to approach the police with this allegation. Now, at the time, Sujata Bhatt had claimed that she had a daughter named Ananya who had gone missing from the Manipal college. It has now been found by the SIT that this daughter never existed. Sujata Bhatt, of course, maintains that there is another girl called Ananya Bhatt who was the daughter of her friends. SIT will have to investigate it because there is an FIR in the case, but most probably even that story is false. So why did Sujata Bhatt come into the picture? Who brought her? That's something else that the SIT will have to investigate. But I think at this point, one aspect that everybody has to have clearly in their minds is that if somebody just walks in today and says that I buried a lot of bodies in some place, in any place in India or a religious place in particular, it's not like they're going to be believed immediately, right? In the case of Dharmasthala, there was a lot of previous history where we have seen unsolved murders, rapes, and there has been a question raised by a former RSS member, Somnath Nayak, who had put an RTI and found that there were incidents of suicide of an unidentified bodies in Dharmasthala. So in that backdrop, when this complainant came, a lot of people demanded for the SIT.
Yeah.
This demand came from activists, from a former judge, from the Women's Commission itself, right? So that's how the SIT was formed.
So the central complaint is still being investigated, and as G. Parmeshwara, the Home Minister, said in the Assembly, the soil is being tested in an FSL. They've confirmed that this is laterite soil, which means that it can corrode most things, including human skeleton. So that investigation is still on. The questioning of the complainant continues as we speak. More people will be probably questioned. But the last point I want to make, when we did speak to people in Dharmasthala and Uchire, they all knew the identity of this complainant. They knew that he was somebody who was burying bodies for years, if not decades. So it did not come as a huge surprise to them. This is his claims. Some of them did think that they were exaggerated, but they did not completely look at it with as much cynicism that people outside were.
Okay, so to just wrap up what's happening now, the complainant is in judicial custody. Who gave him the skull will be investigated. Why did he exaggerate his claims will be investigated. And then accordingly, the SIT will go forward. But the primary complaint still stands. There is an investigation because at 2 spots, remains were found. Now, whose bodies were they? And when did they die? Were they legal, illegal burials? Or was it some other sort of body will be found? So the SITs also questioned other people who were burying bodies in Dharmasthala, and SIT will now look at whether these were legal or illegal burials. They will also look through the UDRs, which is unnatural death reports in Dharmasthala itself. But let's not forget that the 2 central accusations made by this complainant, one is that many of the people he buried were women, has not been proven yet, or has not been proven at all yet, because the first skull that he brought and the 2 remains that were found all belong to males. And the second is that this skull itself was an embellished fake claim, which puts a cloud on all the other claims that he made. And politically, of course, this is going to gather a lot of heat. So we will keep track of all those updates here. Now we go to the first discussion of the day. So the first topic of the day is on the Supreme Court ordering an inquiry by a special investigation team headed by former Supreme Court Judge Justice J. Chalameshwar into the affairs of Vantara. Now, Vantara is a wildlife rescue and rehab center run by Reliance. It's a pet project of Anant Ambani in Gujarat's Jamnagar. So we'll discuss as to why did the Supreme Court suddenly decide to form this SIT, what is going on in Vantara, and also how the media reportage has been around it. Who else to get on this show but India's top investigative journalist M Rajshekhar, who wrote a story in 2024 in Himal Mag called The Cost of Reliance's Wildlife Ambitions. If you haven't read the story, then immediately after you watch this show, you have to go to Himal Mag. The story just needs a login. It's not behind a paywall. Do read that story. It's pretty long, but it's very engrossing. And that is why Rajshekhar was in the long list for the True Story Award. He's now in the list for the 2025 Global Shining Light Award by the Global Investigative Journalism Network. Congratulations for the award shortlist, Rajshekhar, and welcome to the show.
This is what you do, is it? Call people and then sort of humiliate them in public
Embarrass
by
them.
sort of making up squall?
It is not called humiliate. It is called complimenting you.
It's deeply embarrassing.
Yes.
Then our mission is
If I was
accomplished.
at that, I would be an embarrassinger.
Okay. So anyway, what do you make of this SIT inquiry that the Supreme Court has ordered now? But they've only given 15 days time.
I don't know what to make of it. I absolutely don't know what to make of it. So the 2 days ago when the news came, I was talking to some of my legal friends and so on. And usually, SITs are not set up so easily. Right? That you get some petition and you sort of decide that, okay, we're going to commission a SIT. Usually you get the other side to speak to you, you get the representations, and then you sort of decide. I'm also unclear on how the composition of the SIT was arrived at. Why these 4 members in particular? In all this, the question of the timing, right? Giving 15 days is again surprising for me. I think I'm puzzled by the SIT announcement also because the timing is really interesting. There are 2 scenarios that people keep talking about nowadays, which is that one, given the speed with which Vantara has been acquiring endangered species from across the world, there has been a lot of global wildlife NGOs and governments like Brazil, countries in Africa, South Africa, etc., have been complaining to CITES, saying that you have to sort of send an investigations team to Vantara to look at what is really going on there. Okay. If that team is supposed to be coming in any time now, I was told end of August. So when the SIT is set up with a very, very tight timeline, around the same time the CITES team is supposed to come in, you end up wondering what's going on. This is one sort of school of thought from the wildlife trafficking lot who are sort of puzzled by the SIT. If I also have a bunch of friends who are in business journalism, and they are sort of reading a different set of tea leaves, and they are seeing a different kind of a pattern playing out, which is in the last month alone, we have seen an attack on ORF by the right wing. We've seen raids on Anil Ambani. Even Dream11, that online gaming company, it has an indirect relationship to Reliance through Anant Jain. So there's a fair amount of speculation that there is a tussle going on between Prime Minister Modi and Mukesh Ambani, and that this could be one more way of putting sort of gaining leverage over the group. So between these two, I feel very unclear about the logic underpinning the creation of the SIT. So there are 2 schools of thought on why the SIT came into being. 2 conspiracy theories, if you will. And both leave me wondering for now. A. B, even if you leave aside these conspiracy theories and you say that, look, for whatever reason, a SIT has been created and we now have a chance to sort of get into the details of what the court order says, allegations about Vantara, right? Each of these questions that they flag, how does Vantara acquire animals? Is it compliant with CITES, Wildlife Protection Act? What is the condition of animals inside? Is there any sort of instance of trafficking? These are complicated questions. In part because you're talking about, if I go with Vantara's own press releases now, they say they have about 78,000 animals. When you get into questions about how these animals were sourced, you're talking about a fairly rigorous exercise where you cannot simply examine the documentation that they created for CITES, but go a level back to see where the suppliers got these animals from. 1. 2, is all this compliant with WLPA? But there's a backstory there as well. The WLPA, the Wildlife Protection Act, has seen significant amendments before around the time when Vantara was being created. So what is the backstory there? Right? I think without getting really into the detail of this, you cannot really understand what is happening at Vantara. You need to do a field examination like the order says, but the field examination cannot be a 1 day or a 2 day event either. If a facility is saying that it has 300 leopards, then it would really be good if somebody could physically vet the existence of 300 leopards, as opposed to getting a guided tour through the place. Right? So when you have, I was on another discussion 2 days ago where we were talking about some of this. And my point was that these are all deeply large, consequential questions. The backstory here is that if you look at the complaints going into CITES, what we are being told, or what CITES is being told, is that India has emerged as a global hotspot for wildlife trafficking. How did a country which was one of the signatories and founding actors when CITES was created, how did we go from there to a global hotspot for biodiversity trafficking? Okay, which means that the committee or the SIT also has to look at the role of the MOEF, the CZA, the PMO. All right. I go back to the Shah Commission, they went on for 7 years. These are complicated questions with a lot riding on them. The future of biodiversity conservation in this country, the state of global biodiversity, whether wildlife trafficking is seeing an upsurge internationally. These are consequential, heavy, weighted questions, and they cannot be answered cursorily. And it would have been so much nicer if the panel actually had somebody with familiarity with wildlife issues. There's nobody here.
I'll just interrupt you there. So one thing about the SIT is that it does have Justice B. Chelameshwar, who I think would take any business very seriously, right? One is that, but like you pointed out, the composition otherwise is questionable. Now, I want to just, I want to make you explain Vantara itself to the audience, because a lot of people have only seen those videos of jaggery being fed to the elephant and everybody, jaggery being fed to the elephant and everybody saying what a wonderful place this is.
And reporters eating khichdi made for elephants, that too.
Yes. So, Vantara basically, like Rajshekhar writes in his articles, there are two principal building blocks. One is a Radhe Krishna Temple Elephant Welfare Trust and the Greens Zoological Rescue and Rehab Center. So, in Rajshekhar's story, he notes that the idea must have been a good one to rescue and rehabilitate elephants especially. It started way back in 2008 or 9, where elephants injured either in circuses or temples were brought to Vantara. But soon this became a mega personal project of Anant Ambani, and then over the years we've seen a steady stream of animals. And what Rajshekhar says that it's no longer animals which require rescue and rehabilitation. It is all kinds of animals being brought from across the world. It's almost like a vanity project, and that's exactly what we have to call Vantara, a vanity project where a lot of animals are being brought in. So first we look at the question of the animals being brought in itself, Rajshekhar, and then we'll go to other things like the location of Vantara.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take this a little empirically. Let's go with what Vantara says, that this is just media speculation. And let's go with what the Supreme Court order setting up the committee says, that, all the allegations are simply based upon media reporting, right? So if you take this down to first principles, when we wrote our report in March 24, we used the annual report for March 23, and they said, if I remember correctly, if they had 4,600 animals, right? By March 24, the annual report had expanded to say it had 10,000 animals. October 2024, the German newspaper SZ came out with a report saying that Vantara has sourced 39,000 animals through the CITES route alone. Thereafter, if you look at annual press releases of Vantara, they will now say that they have 78,000 animals. I was in Delhi recently on reporting, and somebody told me, people in the Environment Ministry, that the carrying capacity of Vantara has now been upgraded to 75,000 animals. Okay, so question number one, what are these 75,000 animals? Because if you are saying that you are a rescue center, typically a rescue center gets animals in distress, right? So what distress were these 75,000 animals in? Right? But even if I assume that fine, every rescue center doesn't have to be local. Some can be international in their scope and ambition. Should all these 75,000 animals be here, specifically here, and why? Like the German newspaper talks about Vantara having a mountain gorilla. Why should a mountain gorilla be in Jamnagar as opposed to, say, being somewhere in Africa where presumably it could be used for breeding programs or something? Which is the same question which was raised with the Spix macaws, that if those birds are extinct in the wild, only 200 survive in captivity, what is the logic of shifting 26 or whatever of them to Jamnagar instead of directly housing them somewhere in Brazil, closer to the natural environment? Right? So, 75,000. Why 75,000? Where are they coming from? What is the supply chain? When we wrote that Vantara story, we found that there were 5 supply chains through which animals were coming to Vantara. Right? There was one route through which elephants were coming in through gift deeds. Typically letters from owners saying that, I'm unable to look after these animals and therefore I'm giving them to Vantara, even though Vantara is 3,000 kilometers away from where I live in Arunachal Pradesh. And then these elephants would be trucked across 3,000 kilometers from Namsai all the way to Jamnagar. You've had a similar model play out with the international transfers, where people will again say that, we have this set of wildlife that we keep in our private reserve and we are not able to look after them anymore, and these animals are in trouble, and can you take them over? Right? And those animals also come into Vantara. And some of these are legit cases of a rescue. I think one of these collections somewhere in Latin America was actually low on money and those animals were in desperate trouble. Okay. But the point is that each of these transfers has to be then examined on a case-by-case basis. Where are these animals being brought from? 75,000. The last time I checked, these guys had about 120 reticulated pythons. Were they all rescues? Rescued from what? From where? And I think that question really has to be proved somewhere. Even if you assume that that this is a actual philanthropic project built around rescuing animals, because rehabilitation is not happening. No animals are being released back into the wild anyway, right? Then why are you getting them, essentially? And if the claim is that of a rescue, then you have to essentially validate 2 things. One, was the animal in extremis, which necessitated the rescue, in which case you have to define the extremis for us. And 2, you have to very carefully check whether there was any money changing hands. Right? And because if there was money changing hands, then this is not a rescue any longer. It's a commercial transaction in the guise of a rescue. And these are complicated questions, yeah. I don't see how giving the committee 15 days, including weekends, really hacks it. So now we have to see whether the committee is going to ask for an extension, what happens. So, I mean, I run into these questions. I'm very much in a wait and watch kind of a mode right now.
I think the question also is, what is Vantara now? It started off as a rehabilitation center. This private Noah's Ark, if you will, is now somebody's just private collection. So like Shekhar mentioned, can each animal's history, where it originated from, who owned it, if somebody did own it, if it was private, if it was in the wild, how and why was it brought, under what conditions, can it be done for all, either 39,000 or 78,000, whatever is the final number? That is question number one. Why bring it to Jamnagar? Just to put the context, Jamnagar is extremely hot in summers, right? It's difficult for human beings to survive there. It's at least above 40, 45 degrees. So can these endangered species survive there? Is it right that somebody wants it there, so you bring them from their natural habitat and put them here? Second, it's right next to the world's biggest petroleum refinery. So that danger is very much there. So why was Jamnagar chosen? The largest question, and this is something I don't think the SIT has been asked to look at, how the Wildlife Protection Act was tweaked to allow this in the first place. Who's going to look into this? Because this involves the top 5 powerful people in the country. Should we look at how the media has been covering it just yet?
No, so Rajshekhar, just taking on from this, in the story, I know that you have gone into great detail about how the wildlife laws were changed. And I think that is not new in current India, right? From electoral bonds to mining to environment and even to keeping a private zoo.
Yeah.
A lot of laws have been tweaked to actually help billionaires, and people who will in turn help political parties. And there's absolutely no doubt about it. So Rajshekhar, could you quickly touch upon the location of Vantara, why that is questionable, and also the change of the laws?
Maybe we cannot make the argument that all the animals will be exposed to the climate of Jamnagar, because presumably each of these enclosures will be specially designed for the bird or animal they're keeping, right? Which then makes it a fairly energy guzzling sort of an enterprise, but that is Reliance's problem. The curious thing is the location within the refinery complex. This is the world's biggest petrochem refinery. There's a danger of pollution. There is a danger of accidents. And now, as Asim Munir told us, right, that he's adding the Reliance refinery to his list of potential targets in case things go south between him and India, right? So this is a strange location for that reason as well, right? What also complicates matters is that when you're inside an industrial establishment like a refinery, right, surprise inspections by, say, Central Zoo Authority officials or someone become very, very hard, if not impossible. As it is, somebody would have to have a spine of steel and a brain made of concrete to want to do a surprise inspection on the Reliance campus. Right? So you effectively don't know how things are inside, because what you get are curated tours. That is one on the location. The second point here is, I think it is very, very safe to assume that everything Reliance does or Vantara does is within the law. Because you will design the project in such a way that everything is legal and lawful, which is what you see even with their CITES transfers. So at an aggregate level, so when I was looking at elephants, for example, the elephant shipments, you find that the paperwork for every elephant is immaculate. All right. It is only when you go deeper yet that you start seeing contradictions. Contradictions like some elephants not having microchips in the early days. Thereafter, mismatches between the age of the elephant and the age of the microchip. I think there's an overlying veneer of legality, and for the SIT to be successful, it has to go below that superficial. Since we're talking about animals, the SIT has to go below that epidermis. Okay, you have to sort of look at whether this is a manufactured legality. Okay. Which then means that you have to get into the functioning of the MOEF and the legislative process which result in the WLPA amendments, like the Parivesh, the order to sort of, there was a farman from the ministry telling wildlife traders to declare all their stocks on the Parivesh website. This is around the time Vantara was coming up. Where did that idea originate from? right? Who decided that elephants could be used for religious and other purposes? Law typically is exceptionally precise in its language. How does a phrase like "and other uses" or whatever was that phrase, right, come into the text of a law? At whose behest? So, unless we go really deep into the details of all this, we won't get a very good answer. And I think our problem right now as reporters is that, at one time, we guys would do reports and institutions would take action. I think what we are seeing now is something very different, where you do a report and institutions don't really take much cognizance. If anything, they actively sort of ignore it. But at some point, when the political economy shifts, your work starts getting weaponized. That is where I am on this right now.
No, so I think it's at a great risk, both legally and otherwise, that Rajshekhar went ahead with the investigation and Himal Mag published that investigation. Himal Mag is actually not based in India, which perhaps gave them, like you said, a veneer of safety perhaps. But I want to just talk about what happened after the report was published. Now, we are only taking a very small risk by even having this discussion, which you will not perhaps see in a lot of other media. But Rajshekhar, after a report came out, there were multiple attempts to take it down in different ways. And there is also statement by Himal on a case which was given by an advocate, which you are not aware of. Then at the News Minute, we also did a story about how there were press releases from other countries about animals going to Vantara. And many publications which put out those press releases, they had to pull their story down because they were getting calls from people. They were getting emails of threats. Now, these are all people you cannot directly link to Vantara, but they were just like random people so concerned about Vantara that they were sending threats. So just take us through that also, Rajshekhar, on whatever you can tell us. We don't want you to get into more trouble, but yes.
There isn't really much to say. There was a police complaint just after the story came out saying that we had insulted the Khamti community. Then there was this very strange contempt of court case which was foisted on us in Feb this year, which we won. I think it's really interesting that they don't want to take the direct defamation route. Okay. There is I think much of this sorry, Dhanya, I don't know how to answer this one.
Okay, that's fine. That's what I said. I don't want to get you into any sort of trouble discussing this.
Not trouble. I'm unable to sort of actually put a framework around it right now.
No, I think, Rajshekhar, what is happening now is that, like you said, in a lot of cases, nobody wants to put a defamation case because that would then boil it down to bringing facts in front of a court. Yeah. So they use all kinds of other ways. Like in that story, we chronicled how editors were getting calls, they were getting threat emails, and a lot of them were pulling down their stories, right? But Himal Mag has kept that story online, and you should definitely read it. Thank you, Rajshekhar, for all your work. You can also read Rajshekhar's story on the News Minute about the Andaman Nicobar Islands and the port project there. He's supposed to do one big investigation with us. Rajshekhar, after all this, I will come back to you to remind you about that investigation.
But just a quick note, Dhanya, on the media silence, it's so much more important to point out that he took this risk. Because if you look at the so-called mainstream media, there was so much outrage when 12 penguins were brought to Mumbai Zoo. How many people outraged when thousands of animals were being brought in at best dubious way into this private zoo?
No, but
I haven't seen anything.
I think it's also very simplified saying that at least there's a rich person who's ready to give this money to look after animals. What is your problem? I'm also an animal lover, so I want animals to be taken care of. Let this man spend his money. I think it's all simplified into that without people looking at how the laws have been changed, whether the laws have been followed, etc. So thank you very much for your work, Rajshekhar, and to everybody watching and listening South Central. Do read his articles. Yes, you want to make a point?
But very simply, this was the biggest biodiversity story in the country. Okay. 200 elephants going to one petrochemical refinery. All right. Or 300 leopards going there. Or which were the other animals that really... Yeah, something like 90 cheetahs. Right. I don't think... So when we wrote the story, this was the biggest biodiversity story in India. At this time, Vantara is perhaps the biggest biodiversity story in the world. Purely because of the sheer scale it has built. When you look at international reports on Vantara, they are quoting wildlife traffickers or wildlife traders saying that all their inventory has gone over to Vantara. You know, this is something that needs to be understood in and of itself, even if the Supreme Court is deeply wary of relying on media reports. Okay, why? I go back to this. Why 75,000? Where did they come from? What was the process through which they came? And go below the layer of paperwork to see whether this is legal, not just in letter, but in spirit. Because the consequences, and we all know what the consequences of wildlife trafficking are. For every one animal that reaches a destination, maybe 4 or 5 die. Which is not the kind of thing you can afford already in the middle of the world's 6th mass extinction.
Anyway, I think my favorite phrase is overlying veneer of legality. So thank
Mine
you.
was under the epidermis.
Yes. So thank you for giving us those phrases to Rajshekhar. Thank you for joining us here on South Central.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, so after that very power-packed discussion on Gujarat's Vantara, we move back to Kerala, where there is a huge controversy related to Congress Palakkad MLA Rahul Mamkootathil. Rahul Mamkootathil has been accused of sexual misconduct by several women. Some have come to the front. Some have apparently given these complaints to the party. The Congress has suspended him. But is that action enough? Should political parties be reacting more stringently, be taking action more stringently? The Congress, of course, has been pointing fingers at the CPIM, saying that when there were allegations against your people, what did you do? So it's become like a battle between all the parties and, of course, the media right in between. So we're going to talk about all that with 2 journalists joining us from Kerala. Senior journalist Shahina KK. Shahina has worked with many organizations in India. Her last position was in the Outlook magazine. Shahina, thank you for joining us here at South Central. And let me add, I've invited her at least 6 times South Central. This is the first time she's actually come.
Okay. I have heard that you are inviting legal notices for every discussion that you do. So I have to think twice. Now I decided, okay, let's have one defamation notice.
Actually, we haven't got any defamation notices for South Central. But let me also say that Shahina is a Chameli Devi Jain Award winner for Outstanding Media Person in India. She also got the CPJ International Press Freedom Award. So, Shahina, also, we have had 2 journalists today.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 3rd journalist on the show, Sukanya Shaji. We call her our in-house Ladli because she's won so many Ladli awards. Thank you for joining the show, Sukanya Shaji.
So many that she's not allowed to send anymore.
Yeah, she can't send any more nominations. Yes. Okay, so we'll jump right into the discussion, people. Shahina, the Congress has said that they are suspending Rahul Mamkootathil. And by the looks of it, most probably he will not be made the Palakkad candidate next election, or at least the Congress is under a lot of pressure. Now, from what I know, the first thing, I mean, for a lot of people who are from outside Kerala and from within Kerala who don't understand the timeline of this, a few weeks ago, there was a rumor, there was speculation that a journalist was cheated, assaulted, etc. by Rahul Mamkootathil. At that time, the woman had not come forward and there were no complaints, nothing. But a lot of people from the CPIM had started writing about this on social media. At that point of time, a television channel went and asked Rahul Mamkootathil, there is speculation about you, what do you think? He said, who cares? Now, this comment of who cares seems to have triggered other women. And one of the first to come forward is a former journalist turned actor, Rini, who said that the man who said who cares had sent her a message a few years ago when he was not an MLA probably then, that I have booked a hotel in a I have booked a room in a 5-star hotel, why don't you come? Then one more woman comes. She's a trans woman. Her name is Avantika. She said that he has sent her also messages. And a phone conversation is played out in the media, which is purportedly between Rahul Mamkootathil and another woman who's a journalist. She's pregnant and he's asking her for an abortion. So these are the 3 cases which are out there in the public. But what I do know is that initially when that complaint came out and nobody was mentioned, there was no complainant, from then on there has been a churn in the Congress. Initially when I was asking a lot of Delhi-based Congress leaders as to what are you doing, they said, no, this is a consensual relationship. That is what they were told, that this is consensual. And slowly a Congress leader's daughter complained. Then other Congress people complained, which is the reason why the party could no longer ignore this. Shahina, what are your thoughts about this entire thing?
See, this allegations of sexual harassment is nothing new in Kerala politics, like any other politics, not only in Kerala politics, everywhere. This is nothing new. But a surge of allegations coming one after another, and more than 9-10 women coming up with complaints against a single person who is a MLA, is something that we have never witnessed before. So this is something very, very serious. I think the Congress in Kerala is going through a crisis which that party has never met before. And you mentioned about that woman, that anchor turned actor. Her name was Rini, I remember. She was the first person who came up with a statement without mentioning Rahul Mamkootathil's name regarding this, which opened up this Pandora box of allegations. So when I saw that statement made by that woman, I was thinking about something. How beautifully women explore the language to talk about sexual harassment. Now we are all caught up with lot of confusions with regard to, for example, like if someone has given a false promise of marriage and got into sex, and then this person cheated her. So whether we should call it rape, whether we should call it cheating. So these are the kind of discussions happening. And also the very concept of consent is also going through, like people are very much confused about this concept of consent. So I understand that women are trying to explore and women are trying to find out the language to talk about. All this confusion, whether it is rape or whether it is cheating, emerges from the fact that we do not have a language to talk about sexual exploitation. We are still struggling to find one. So there are 2 things, like one is the realm of law. So the first question that comes up from the public is that why don't you file a case? Why didn't you go to the court? We all know that the very objective of Me Too movement, the very vision of Me Too movement is not immediately going to the court and getting, a remedy from the court. In fact, Me Too movement itself was an attempt to negotiate the problems of sexual exploitation and, the kind of problems that women face in both in workplace and outside workplace. So this is a part of that. So when this Rini said, mentioned this thing by bringing up this very tagline, who cares? And as Dhanya pointed out, this who cares was something that, triggered this women to come out. So one thing that these predators have to understand, one thing that the society have to understand, that women are struggling to come out with whatever they have to talk about. So anything, so these are all part of finding a language. These are all part of finding a language for negotiation to talk about sexual exploitation. So this very tagline, who cares, which was, said by this Rahul Mamkootathil with a very mature body language, that who cares. So this has become the weapon for his, for winding up his political career. So I'm glad about that. That is one thing that I want to mention. And secondly, this woman actually, she made it very clear that she has not gone through any physical harassment, nothing like that. But she got some messages from him. And so she thought that she should talk about it. She should come up. She should make it public. Then the other women who actually went through sexual exploitation and harassment will be able to come up with their complaints and they will be able to talk. So, in fact, she was taking up that challenge. Maybe there might be politics behind it. It must be there, but I don't care actually, because it actually prompted many women to come up and to talk about what they have gone through. And the allegations were very, very, very serious. It was not just about that he sent some messages. It was not just about he made a false promise of marriage and dragged these women into sex. But there were allegations of forced abortion and even, without caring for their health and forcing women into sex without using condom, which are all criminal activities. And this is being done by one MLA who is representing the people in the Legislative Assembly. Okay, it is good that Congress suspended him from the party. But my question is, why he is being retained in the Legislative Assembly? They may have their own political reasons, but we need an answer to this question. Why Congress is not demanding his resignation from the Assembly? And what is the message that this Congress party is giving to us? It's not only about Congress, but every political party has to think about such predators being retained in a body like the Legislative Assembly, even though they are suspended from the party. So Congress has to give an answer to the public regarding this, like why he is being retained. Who has to bear the responsibility of such a person being in the assembly? Are the voters being punished for voting for the Congress candidate? So this is the question that the Congress has to give to the problem is not going to have an end by merely suspending him from the party.
Two quick observations. When you mentioned that the Delhi leader thought this was consensual, such a sense of familiarity, right? So many of these issues have started with people all around them thinking, oh, it's consensual, without understanding the nature of sexual assault, sexual harassment, that it doesn't have to always be physical force. There are multiple ways a woman can be coerced, and without understanding that, they just dismiss it as consensual. Second thing, we can talk till the cows come home about women reservation and how there should be more women in politics. But until you make political parties a place where women with no father, no brother, no husband to look after you feel safe, even with them it is difficult. But I'm saying without that, how do you expect women with any kind of self-respect to survive in that kind of an atmosphere?
No, but the irony here is that Rahul Mamkootathil is accused of harassing a woman whose father is a prominent leader in the
Perhaps
Congress.
why it came out, I'm saying. If the woman's father was not somebody in the system, she would have had to suffer him for God knows how long.
Yeah. So I also want to add that the Congress in turn has been speaking about the Shornur MLA PK Shaji. Imagine all these people are from my district, Palakkad. PK Shaji also was accused of sexual misconduct and then he was suspended for 6 months. He was taken back by the CPIM. Again, no proof, whatever. It was on a phone call that he supposedly harassed a woman who belonged to the DYFI, which is the party's own wing, right? So this is everybody's pointing fingers at each other. Sukanya, you have been watching this entire issue pan out. What are your thoughts on the blame game?
Yeah, so taking away from what Shahina had mentioned about how women are trying to find this language to express what's been happening, something that is very interesting that I've noticed is not just the women who have spoken about Rahul Mamkootathil, but also if we look at it, there is an actor Urvashi who's asking the National Awards jury for accountability. There is a Sandra Thomas who's up against the Producers Association saying, why wouldn't you take my candidature for election, etc. So there is I feel like we're going through this time where we see a lot of women trying to negotiate with systems that are so rigid and so rigged against them that I feel it's important to talk about, do we have a safe space? Do we have systems in place that help women to come out? Because one major conversation in this whole business is about why women have not been going to the police. there is no FIR, there is no complaint, which is why Rahul is still probably continuing to be an MLA, is one of the arguments that is being given by the party. A lot of people from the party say that we have suspended him, but he's an elected representative. Plus, there is no FIR against him. Nobody's complaining. But then the problem is also what happens to a woman who complains. This is the same argument we saw with the Hema committee also, where everyone said that women are not, there were a few cases where there were women who filed, and there are cases that have been at different level, that are at different levels of investigation and trial and all of that. But then the common narrative is, why don't women complain? But then I feel we should also be asking, why should survivors suffer the accountability deficit of organizations and structures? So I feel that we are excessively blaming survivors for the accountability deficit of systems and organizations that refuse to take any accountability. And we are instead turning this into a blame game, which is also very, very, I think it's a very recognizable pattern. Whenever something goes wrong, suddenly the conversation is, oh, but the CPIM has an MLA, Mukesh, who is still in office, so why should we suspend? But that's not going to remedy the problem. I feel that the problem is also about the fact that survivors, women, don't have a space where they can come out and speak safely. They're bullied in cyberspaces. They are not allowed to, they cannot go to work. They are ostracized from families, friend groups, and that kind of isolation is really, really difficult to deal with. So I think that the onus has to be on people who have power in every equation, which is the political party, which is the stronger leaders, which is the men who are trying to sit and blame each other and say, oh, we have done this, but what have you done?
I watched a clip of Sania Mirza saying that, it is a man's world, and that's true of sports field as well. It is a man's world and it's difficult for women. So true it is of politics. Everything is being, and I notice from multiple conversations with politicians, they see sexual harassment, assault accusations as an unwanted nuisance. Oh, we had a good candidate who could have won, but he has these allegations, these scams, scandals against him. It is never seen from the prism of this can make or break someone's career. It is something that people should be voting on. If a man is accused of sexual harassment, legally what happens. But should we go ahead and cast our vote for somebody like that is not taken seriously enough in India, which is why I feel everybody can just sit and say, oh, I suspended for 6 months. What have you done? That comparison comes because it is not a serious enough issue for people to even look at now.
Yeah, this is actually a very relevant point. Like, there is no system or there is no structure within the political parties to address such issues. Like, for example, according to our knowledge, around 8-9 women within the Congress had approached the party with leadership with complaints. Specifically, what I understand, specifically to Shafi and VD Sadishan, but no action was taken. So when I interviewed MB Govindan Master, the state secretary of CPIM, for my YouTube channel, I asked him this question. Whenever there is a complaint, whenever there is a complaint of sexual harassment being raised by a party member, a woman, it is immediately treated as an internal matter. But if there is a complaint of sexual harassment raised by an independent woman or someone from some other party, then it becomes a crime. Then everybody is talking about it as a crime. So political parties have this double standards, and this is the latest example, and the most heinous example that we have ever come across. 8 to 9 women within the party raised complaints, and they approached the leadership with the complaints, and so far no action had been taken. As she rightly pointed out, now the question is why he is not asked to resign from the position of MLA. The answer is there is no formal complaint. But the question is why there is no formal complaint, despite having the fact that 8 to 9 women approached the party leadership with complaints, and what the party leadership is doing with these complaints, what they have done so far. It all, goes to this fact that, we don't have a system. We don't have a structure within the political parties. We are all talking about the need of having ICs with all organizations, with all government departments. But there are no ICs for political parties, and these women do not have any forum okay, it's completely fine if they don't want to come up with a complaint in public. If they want to settle it within the party, that is okay, if that is what they want. But where is the system? Where is the system for a political party to address this issue? So this issue is actually raising several questions with regard to the problems that women face, like sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, issues like that.
I feel that this is also an issue of power abuse, right? So when we are talking about Rahul Mamkootathil and when we are saying that, oh, he just spoke on phone, this was consensual or whatever, this is also about consistent power abuse, about this power imbalance when there is a man who is an MLA and then there is a woman on the other side who is having whatever, a personal conversation or whatever with him. So like Shahina said, when we talk about ICs also, the CPIM does have an IC. They have the details of their IC members on their website and they're said to be reconstituted every 3 years, but then there are no details. There are no details of the cases, the number of cases they've handled so far, what are the outcomes of these ICs. The AIPC also has an IC in place, but we do not have numbers of the members or anything on their website. So I feel this is also about how ICs function, because this is very, I'm drawing a parallel again with the Hema Committee report, where the Hema Committee report clearly says that even film sets which have ICs are corrupted by powerful men, because it is always a man who is in charge of a film set. It's always a producer, or whoever is in charge of a film set is always invariably a man. And all these ICs are very prejudiced in favor of the powerful men who are there. So when it is such an all-male system, I think the efficacy of ICs is also question, and also the transparency of process. Obviously, we cannot be giving out details of survivors or anything else like that to protect privacy, but then there has to be some system where you document what happened to each case, how is it being handled, is there a due process that is being followed, what is the due process that is being followed, etc. And I also feel this technicality of bringing political parties within the scope of the POSH Act. The courts, both the Kerala High Court and the Supreme Court, has been saying that there is no employer-employee relationship. And I feel that this is a space where even the judiciary should be adopting some sort of, get into some sort of judicial interpretation, judicial activism space where because you see this happening right in front of you. So if you're going to say that we cannot bring this under the POSH Act, then what is the alternative? Because so many women, like Shahina said, are suffering. So many women leave politics. So many women are not able to come out and speak. So then what is the alternative? If there cannot be an alternative, then the legal system also, I feel, has to be proactive. We cannot say that there is no employee-employer relationship as mandated by the POSH Act. So we will not allow ICs aren't mandatory in a political party. If you want, you can do it. But leaving that much subjectivity is also at the cost of women's safety. And I feel this is also about internalizing that attitude of about really feeling that it's important to make women feel safe. Right now, it just looks like there are systems, there is a judiciary, there are parties. Everyone is sitting there and saying, oh, we've done this. Now, what more do you want? This whole attitude of what more do you want is really hurtful for people who go through such experiences of harassment and abuse, because women are being asked, we've done this. Now, what do you want? Like as if we are intruding into a space where we are not supposed to, and as if we are asking for something that we are not supposed to ask for. There's an element of very palpable sense of cruelty that I feel when I see this, and it's so heartbreaking. And I feel that it's very important for systems to really internalize, and the men who make decisions to really internalize and believe in the fact that women need to be protected. I mean, as in women need to have safe spaces and legal protection and safety, and that they're equal. I feel this is a lot about people, men and systems not feeling that it's important at all to treat women equally, but all of this has to be done just for the optics.
I see in most places where they do exist, including in journalism, it's just a checklist. It's never about creating a safe space. It's about, we are mandated, so we have an IC.
I have a few words to tell those people who say things like, oh, why didn't the women complain? We have had multiple examples, brothers and sisters, where women went to court. They even had witnesses with them and nothing will happen. For example, take the Bishop Franco case. There were so many witnesses who turned up in court, but eventually, if you read that judgment, everything was cancelled because the judge felt this is not right, that is not right, and there were just questions thrown. So what are we expecting women to do? For example, if I'm walking somewhere, am I supposed to have body cameras on me to clearly document if a harassment is taking place? Only then that would go as material evidence. So do not ask women to go to the police or go to the courts all the time, because this harassment happens within the walls of a place where nobody else is witnessing, where there are no cameras recording it. It happens within chat boxes. For example, Rahul Mamkootathil apparently was using disappearing messages and secret chats on Telegram, which, by the way, if you have not used it, you cannot even take screenshots of. So when women cannot produce evidence, then let's stop asking each person to go to the police, to go to the court. The second thing is that there are around 3 or 4 women, at least 3 women that we know who have come publicly on this. There are at least 9 women who have gone to the party. Do you for a moment think that these women are doing this for publicity? Look at the way they're abused on social media. Look at the way they're harassed on social media. Why would any woman want to put themselves through this? I'm not saying that all the complaints against men are correct. There may be some women who are doing it for publicity, for vengeance, whatever. But I don't think there are a lot of women who would put themselves out there to complain against an MLA, a powerful person, not just any other man on the street. Shahina, you have any concluding thoughts about what is panning out now?
I want to add one point. In fact, Rahul Mamkootathil or anybody, any man who is facing the allegations of sexual harassment is not a single individual. He actually represents a system. See the kind of the flood of support being given to Rahul Mamkootathil in social media. The Congress women leaders from Uma Thomas to Tara Alex. She's a junior person, or she's very vocal for Congress in social media. Uma Thomas is an MLA. How they were brutally trolled by Rahul supporters. Some even went so far as to say Uma should have died in that horrible accident at the Kochi Stadium a few months ago. I mean, something which is beyond our imagination. The amount of cruelty in it. And this Tara Alex, she was slut-shamed and even thrown out of all pro-Congress social media groups. The trolling really crossed all limits. So, what do we understand? I was really embarrassed to see the kind of attack that is happening against these women Congress leaders in social media, which I have never seen. I mean, in my career, like in 29 years of my career, I have never seen that kind of that level of harassment and trolling and abusing even the women leaders on social media. So, what I understand is that this is actually Rahul Mamkootathil or whoever represents a system which is run by men, run for men, and women have no place in it. I think the women leaders of Congress, not only Congress, the women leaders in all other parties should take a cue from this incident, that how women are being treated within parties. So this is what I wanted to say as a conclusion.
What I'm thinking about is also this camaraderie, this whole bro code that's playing out between Shafi Parambil and Rahul Mamkootathil, and how one bro is turning up for the other bro and saying, oh, but he's resigned, oh, but I was here. And this whole show of aggression and this is also very real coded, I feel, if we can say that, very social media background, add background reel, put a real coded thing where they will say something that's very, very reelable and very heroic and say, we've done this, what have you done? But he has gone, he has himself resigned, or he was not told to resign, but he still resigned. So this whole bro code of people coming together within the party, banding together, I don't think this would have happened if it was a woman. And I don't think this is happening for the survivors either. So like Shahina said, all of the social media comment boxes, all of the real comment boxes, everything being filled with anti-women comments, and about Shanimol Usman is being trolled, like Uma Thomas is being trolled, Tara is being trolled, all women who have been asking for accountability are being trolled, and all men who have come together either in support of Rahul Mamkootathil or in support of the Congress are not facing any of this, are not facing any questions on accountability. I feel this picture is very telling of how progressive we really are, how progressive Kerala really is. So looking at it as a woman from the outside, I really feel distressed, and I feel like I mean, I don't know what word to use for this, but it's really, really distressing. It's really, really disturbing to see this. And in this ecosystem, I feel nobody has the right to ask a woman who's already gone through trauma to come and say, I'm going to take this powerful person's name. Why aren't you taking his name? Why are you just making hints? I don't think anybody has a right to ask any woman or any survivor or any person for that matter from a marginalized identity to come and say, this is who I'm going up against and I'm going to go file a complaint against that person.
I think that's a very, very important point. The way women have been treated after this Rahul Mamkootathil incident, those who complained against him, those who stood up for him, now people have lost the moral high ground to ask any woman, why don't you come and complain? Because this is what will happen if you come and talk about it. And everybody should be asking for accountability. Those who are told deserves our support. And Shafi Parambil has to be asked, what were you doing? Do not say that you are not aware of these cases, because you must clearly have been. And even when this happened, Shafi Parambil should have been the first one to react, saying that I will make sure Rahul is removed. He made all sorts of excuses. I was in Bihar, I was in the parliament. So what? You did not know that this is happening around you. He should have been the first one to react, because we can be pretty sure now that he was aware of this and never broke the bro code. So I think the action should not be limited to Rahul Mamkootathil. It should be limited to all those people in the Congress who knew this was happening and they did not move a finger. I think you can all troll us for asking for accountability, but remember, we are very troll-proof. It's troll shield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yes, been there, done that. So we'll now finish the show with recommendations. What is your recommendation for the week, Sukanya?
I have 2 recommendations for the week. One is this series that I've recently watched. It's called Why Women Kill. It's a series about 3 women. One is from the 1960s, one is from the 1980s, and one is from late 2017-18. So 3 women who live in the same mansion in 3 different eras, and all 3 of their lives, their marital lives and their personal relationships get problematic, and all 3 of them end up in a murder scene. So it's about Why Women Kill. It's a really nice series. It's a very limited series. I think the season that I watched has very few episodes. So that's one of my recommendations. Another recommendation is a book that I have read before, but it's also a book that I keep going back to. It is Gabriel Garcia Marquez's novella called The Chronicle of a Death Foretold. I started rereading it after reading Nidhi's article on the Bishop Franco case, actually, because the novella is also about the murder of a man in a town, and the murder takes place. He's killed by the brothers of a woman. So there's a woman who gets married, and then her husband returns her to her home the next day of the marriage because he figures out she's not a virgin. And then the brothers go and kill the man who apparently took her virginity, took in quotes. So the book is not really about the murder itself, but it investigates the surrounding and the premise and why this murder happened at all and what people think about women, virginity, religion, faith, and all of it. It's a fantastic read. So I've been rereading it. I would recommend that as well. The Chronicle of a Death Foretold by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
I saw this book, at a friend's place. I'm yet to read it. But, see, AD Justice, Women, the Law, and the Battle to Save America. It profiles Sally Yates, Christine Blasey Ford, Stacey Abrams, and others. Like we keep hearing, right, that, as a reporter, right, most of the really exceptional people I run into are the women. Okay, and that sort of holds true across countries. So this is a book I really wanted to pick up the moment I saw it. I have to clear time and space and read it.
Yeah, I would recommend everyone to reread and reread one book. She Said. We all know about that book. To understand what actually Me Too movement is and how to negotiate, how to find a language and how to negotiate with the society with regard to the problems of the issues of sexual exploitation. And this book, written by 2 New York Times journalists, Megan Toy and Jodie Cantor, which has become a movie too. So I would suggest everyone to read that book, which is, a series of sexual abuse allegations against this powerful Hollywood producer, Harvey Weinstein. So people would be able to understand, why women are constantly talking about, trying to talk about sexual harassment, and why women are preferring to negotiate with the society instead of going to the court with each and everything. So going to the court or, going to the police is not the only way to deal with, a case of sexual exploitation or a case of sexual harassment. So this is something that the society should understand.
Yeah, my recommendation is this podcast series on Himal South Asian. No, it isn't only because Leena has joined them, but also I found this very peaceful and serene. It's called Partitions of the Heart. It's hosted by Harsh Mandar. It talks about, what happened in India for about a decade or so after partition. And as a South Indian, I've always been fascinated with how people had to rebuild their lives on both sides of the border. And this does so in a very beautiful way. The first guest on this show was Saida Hamid, who's a writer. I would suggest that you start and then it kind of builds on. So, also, because Rajshekhar refused to be vain, go and check out his piece on The Wire that's come out today about why the Union government did a U-turn on the ban on gaming websites.
So I have two recommendations. One is for Rahul Mamkootathil, Shafi Parambil and the likes of him. They do not know about the saying that Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. So I want them to read this book called Masters of Rome. It's by Colin McCullough. I don't think it's available in India, but please buy a Kindle as a Kindle version. They must read it to understand why this whole saying came that Caesar's wife must be beyond suspicion. And the recommendation for normal public is... but it's a Malayalam recommendation. I don't think others can watch it, but I really thought it brought sisterhood and it made me laugh and it made me feel so good. Is this interview done by Ranjini Haridas with singer K.S. Chitra. It is so nice. It just brought like two women, their camaraderie. And Ranjini calls Chitra Pooja Chechi. Just cat Chechi. So why does she call her that? It's just a fun interview. But I felt so happy and relieved watching that. So if you felt tensed after watching South Central, you can go watch Ranjini Haridas's interview with K.S. Chitra. Thank you very much to Sukanya and Shahina for joining us. Thank you to my producer Bhuvan Malik. Thank you to production assistant Ajay, our editor Jasim Ali. Sukanya Shaji, by the way, is the one who normally listens to every episode and writes a story, etc. So thank you for that, Sukanya. And Yana, who does our socials. To all those watching and listening, do not forget, go like on Spotify and become a subscriber of the News Minute.